Hi Dimitri, it's great to see you here again in Brussels where it's a little bit cold, but at the same time it hasn't rained too much, has it?
Yes, the weather was not bad this week, but also the talks we had, the meetings we had this week were also quite good. And so now we are talking about USHU and the history of USHU.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be very useful for people who are watching us today because you're a founding member of USHU. So maybe you could tell us, how USHU came about, what was the need for USHU?
Well, everything started 10 years ago. We are now celebrating 10th anniversary. There were three of us at the time who were thinking that actually we had support from the trade unions at the time operating in headquarters. But on the other hand, we also thought that it would be very good and very useful for staff in delegations to have a trade union which will take care of their own specific problems.
So in fact, prior to the creation of USHU, there wasn't a trade union that was dedicated to delegation needs. That's what I understand. Is that right?
Well, several trade unions were dealing with issues of staff in delegations, but they were all based here in Brussels, and they were primarily focused on staff working in Brussels, which is normal. But as I said, on the other hand, we really felt the need to establish a trade union which will really deal with the staff in delegations and their specific problems.
Yeah, to make sure that their issues are on the agenda every time there are meetings at headquarters. Otherwise, quite often delegations will have a tendency to be a bit out of sight, out of mind, maybe a bit neglected. So when was USHU created then?
Well, USHU was created towards the end of 2017, and then we started working in 2018, so as I said, now it's 10 years. And we have been involved in everything that has been happening since then, in many negotiations, in many discussions, consultations. For instance, the last and the latest that we are now involved is the issue of the conditions of employment for local agents.
Which is extremely important, isn't it? Because we have thousands of local agents working in the 139 delegations all over the world. So it's a really critical issue for them.
Exactly, it's a critical issue, and also the fact that these are the rules which were established something like 26-7 years ago, so it's really time to renew them and to get something which will then serve for the future, for the next decade or 2 decades. So that's why it's important. It's also important because we have staff in 140 delegations, so it's a very complex discussion, and our involvement in the discussion is important in order to steer the process and to help the administration.
Yeah, and as you say, the rules which are in force at the moment are almost 3 decades old, and for me, who's more of a newcomer to USHU, I'm not one of the founder members, but I was very much involved in USHU because I believe we have to have a modern approach to the workplace and we have to have a differentiated approach. We need to be aware of what the specific needs are of delegations as a whole and even individual delegations if we really want to represent the staff in the best possible manner.
Exactly, that's what makes our work very complex and complicated, because we need to think about the common denominator for all delegations on one hand. On the other hand, we need to take into account specificities, and you can imagine that situation in delegations in Africa are different from the problems in delegations in Latin America or in Europe. So all this needs to be taken into account, and we are really trying to do our best.
I mean, USHU represents all staff categories, so obviously it was very much a movement which came from the basis. It really came from staff in delegations, so it covers local agents, contract agents, temporary agents, officials. So it's all encompassing, and the idea is to bring forward the issues from staff in delegations and at the same time make recommendations so that we can be a better and more modern working place, really.
Certainly. You yourself, as a contract agent, you were involved in many discussions and many meetings related to specific contract agent issues. Perhaps you can say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've been involved in the most recent JIPs. We've been involved in issues related to mobility for contract agents, and then on a more sort of common ground area, we're involved a lot on well-being, what well-being means, and how it can be translated into specific policies for delegations. Now, USHU, as you said, was founded roughly 10 years ago, so we're coming up to our anniversary, and we will be contacting staff more and more in delegations because we want to know how you want to become more involved in staff representation work, how you can feedback your needs to us and give us some recommendations on what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. We want to hear from you. Is that right, Dimitri?
Absolutely. We represent staff, and that's why it's important to know what staff think what the problems they face are, and how we will develop in the future.
Yeah, we're hoping to launch a very short survey. We know that everyone has a huge amount of work to do in delegations, but we would ask you to delegate just a few minutes of your time to look at this survey and to provide us with feedback. And as USHU executive members, I'm the chair, and obviously Dimitri is one of our founder members. We will look at your replies, and we will make sure that these feed into our future strategies. We will take them very, very seriously. So please take the time to fill in the USHU survey, which should be with you in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Helen. I think this will help our colleagues in delegations for the future.
Thank you.